This is HMS Prince of Wales, the flagship of the Royal Navy and the cornerstone of the entire British Armed Forces. And the UK almost put her up for sale. The British Royal Navy is only half the size it was just 50 years ago. On the surface, this shrinkage is due to low funding, personnel shortages, and an aging fleet of ships that are well past their prime. However, that doesn't explain why 4 submarines get priority service in the Royal Navy, while more than 60% of their fleet of ships are currently stuck, waiting for maintenance. This is why many are calling this the decline of the Royal Navy. But why the UK defense budget is shrinking, even though they're allocating more money to it than ever before, how their aircraft carriers are cannibalizing each other, and why the Royal Navy had to reassure the public that their sailors are not starving, is not what you think. The Royal Navy's fleet consists of 12 frigates, 9 submarines, 6 destroyers, and 2 aircraft carriers, plus a handful of support ships. And they're all struggling to stay afloat. No pun intended. Since 2019, the funding for the Royal Navy has fluctuated quite a bit. Between 2019 and 2020, the British defense budget was £56.5 billion, £58 billion in 2021, then jumping up to $67.5 and $68.4 billion in 2022 and 2023, until it dropped back to $56.8 billion in 2024. If we take inflation into account, the actual value of these funds has gone down, effectively decreasing the Navy's budget. This is why there's been a lot of noise since 2024 that the Royal Navy might either decommission or end up selling its second aircraft carrier, HMS Prince of Wales. But what's even more concerning is the extensive maintenance delays that have plagued the entire fleet. In December 2024, the Royal Navy admitted that 2/3 of their entire fleet, from destroyers to patrol boats, were stuck in maintenance and unable to hit the water. The last time the Royal Navy had such low numbers of ships ready to set sail, Queen Victoria was still in charge. What's even more fascinating is that these maintenance delays are partly caused by 4 submarines. In the 1990s, the United Kingdom retired all of their airdropped nuclear bombs. This was due to the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, and the fact that submarines offered a more secure and survivable platform for nuclear weapons compared to aircraft. But the echoes of that decision are causing some serious headaches today. See, unlike countries like the United States, which have the ability to deploy nuclear missiles from the air, via ground-based silos, and from the water, the entire British nuclear deterrence strategy is currently consolidated into 4 submarines. They call it Continuous at-Sea Deterrent, or CASD. Even one of these 4 submarines falling into disrepair or getting caught in maintenance delays is a serious hit to the UK's nuclear deterrence. The 4 nuclear-powered Vanguard-class submarines have been in service since the 1990s. Equipped with the Trident II missile system, they represented the pinnacle of nuclear power projection at the time of their commissioning. Now, they're starting to show their age, and the Royal Navy has no choice but to keep them fully operational. See, for nuclear deterrence to work, it has to be a credible, realistic threat, which is why at least one of these 4 submarines has to be on patrol at all times. Although, it doesn't help that the last 2 times the UK tried testing their $20 million Trident missiles, both of them completely failed. In 2016, the test missile flew directly towards the east coast of the United States. And no, that was not the target that they had in mind. Thankfully, in World of Warships, your shots go exactly where they're supposed to. World of Warships isn't just a game. It's a deep dive into naval warfare, packed with over 400 real-life ships, all modeled from historical blueprints. Whether you're into co-op or cruising PvP, World of Warships has you covered with 7 battle types, 40+ maps, and 20 ports, many modeled after real harbors. Even the weather can impact the tactics of each battle. This game is not about speed, it's about strategy, and it's entirely free to play on PC. Whether you're a fan of battleships, destroyers, or aircraft carriers, you can choose from legendary historical figures, or even your favorite fictional characters to command your fleet. If you're new to this game, you can now use the invite code STEPUP to unlock 7 days of premium access, 1 million credits, 500 doubloons, new ships, and the Star and Stripes skin. Plus, the game control is quite easy to learn. You'll be sinking enemy warships after just a few battles. So click the link in the description and celebrate Independence Day by immersing yourself in the educational journey of American naval history when you play World of Warships on PC and consoles. The 4 Vanguard-class submarines are now about 30 years old, so the Royal Navy is currently in the middle of extending their service life. The first submarine to undergo this service life extension program, HMS Vanguard, cost British taxpayers over £500 million and took 7 years to complete, a full 4 years longer than expected. As a result, the UK has been conducting longer and longer submarine patrols due to fewer submarines being available. The downstream effects of these maintenance delays became obvious during the 2024 patrol of HMS Vigilant. After almost 200 days at sea, the submarine in charge of the UK's nuclear deterrence was so low on food and other mission-critical supplies that they had to ration food. The crew were even ordered to hand in their sweets and snacks to be shared out. In the aftermath of this news, the Royal Navy publicly and very clearly stated that there was no risk of starvation for those submariners. I'm sure that's true, but not starving the men and women in charge of the most powerful weapons in existence is not a very high bar. The Brits have to make do with their current 4 nuclear submarines until the new Dreadnought-class ballistic missile submarines are able to take over. These new submarines are considered a step up from the Vanguards they'll be replacing. But it's estimated that just in upkeep alone, the Dreadnought-class submarines would take up 6% of the entire defense budget every single year. Multiply that by the 40-year lifespan that the Navy hopes to get out of them, and that's enough to get almost any monarch sweaty.
There's a slight problem with the sweating because I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat.
Prioritizing upgrades for these 4 submarines has come at the huge cost of all the other ships going down in the priority list, leaving them docked for years. For example, of the 6 relatively new Type 45 destroyers in service, only 2 are operational. One of them, HMS Daring, has spent more time in repair than actually being out at sea since 2012. Destroyers being stuck in dry dock is especially problematic because their primary role is air defense against drones and enemy aircraft. Not having them at sea leaves the rest of the fleet without dedicated air defense. The fleet of Astute-class submarines have also been permanently stuck in port. In 2024, not a single one was operational due to maintenance delays. Being the largest and most powerful attack submarines ever produced by the Royal Navy, this was a big deal. The lack of funding and personnel to work on these platforms are also big contributing factors to these delays. Take a frigate, for example, which is one of the smallest things floating around in the Royal Navy's fleet. A midlife overhaul of a frigate takes an average of 1.4 million man-hours to complete. So if one person were to work non-stop, 24/7, it would take about 160 years to overhaul one frigate. Thankfully, they use a team, so it takes about 4 years on average. In 2022, after HMS Queen Elizabeth suffered damage to one of its propeller assemblies, the Navy had to cannibalize HMS Prince of Wales by taking some of its working parts to fix up the broken aircraft carrier. This is usually an absolute last resort because it causes bigger logistical and repair issues down the line. Fast forward to 2024, and this time, HMS Prince of Wales had to replace her sister ship on NATO's Steadfast Defender after HMS Queen Elizabeth had to be pulled out due to a technical problem. But mechanical issues aren't the only things plaguing these two aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers without airplanes are just really expensive runways in the middle of the ocean. And that's the exact problem the Royal Navy is facing. Back in 2012, the Ministry of Defense announced that it would be purchasing a 48-plane batch of the then brand new F-35B. Originally, the plan was to order a total of 138 and slap them into the Royal Navy's two aircraft carriers. But now, over a decade later, the UK only has 34 of them, and no more have been ordered yet. During wartime operations, each carrier is capable of carrying 36 F-35s, meaning that the Royal Navy doesn't have enough F-35s to fill even one of their aircraft carriers. This poses a serious problem since the UK ditched their Harriers and Tornadoes and now doesn't have anything to replace them with. So the Royal Air Force, which operates a larger fleet of cheaper-to-fly fourth-generation fighters, has had to step in and take over some of the missions of the Navy. Recruiting has lately become a challenge for many militaries around the world, but the Royal Navy took it to the next level when in December 2023 they put a job posting on LinkedIn for a Rear Admiral position. This was unprecedented because these types of roles have been traditionally filled internally. In 2024, the British Ministry of Defense announced that they'll be scrapping a number of ships, helicopters and drones in hopes of freeing up about £500 million worth of funding that was being spent on keeping these older platforms in service. On paper, this meant that the UK would lose a lot of naval fire and air power. But in reality, nothing much actually changed. Let me explain. Two of the ships being decommissioned were amphibious assault ships that still had a full decade left of their lifespan. These ships were used to deploy troops for beach landings and served as aircraft launch platforms. The only problem was that there were the only two assault ships in the entire fleet, meaning the Royal Marines were gonna have to find a new way to hit the beach if the situation started getting hot again. The thing is, neither one of those ships actually worked at all. Both had fallen into severe disrepair and were not considered seaworthy by Navy standards. In fact, they had become so worn out and damaged that they had been taken out of service unofficially, and the Navy expected them to literally sit in port for the next 10 years before officially being taken out of service. But there is hope. The recent success of the Brits in the Red Sea showed that a need for a capable Navy is still critical in the modern world of drones, robots, and terrifying laser guns. This is why brand new frigates and submarines that are actively being built have been designed with the current issues plaguing the fleet in mind. To weather the storm in the meantime, however, the United Kingdom has to significantly raise its defense expenditure in the near future. And I think they will. After all, they've got 500 years of practice and no sweat.
Or I didn't sweat at the time, and that was, yes, I didn't sweat at the time.
Play World of Warships. Click the link in the description and use the invite code STEPUP to unlock 7 days of premium access, exclusive ships, and valuable in-game rewards.